I Dream of Jeannie was an American fantasy sitcom that was created by Sidney Sheldon. It starred Barbara Eden as the sultry 2,000-year-old Jeannie and Larry Hagman as an astronaut who falls in love with and eventually marries her. The show ran from September of 1965 to May of 1970, with a total of 139 episodes. NBC originally wanted to film season 1 in black and white because they didn't believe the show would last more than one season. Sidney Sheldon offered to pay the extra $400 per episode to make it in color. He was then told by Screen Gems not to throw his money away. This show is not going to last. The first season was done in black and white after all, and then colorized after that, similar to the way Gilligan's Island was done. Sidney Sheldon readily admits that he used the comedy movie The Brass Bottle from 1964, a film about a man portrayed by Tony Randall, who unleashes a male genie, who's played by Burl Ives, that goes on to cause more problems for his master than he solves. Sheldon used this show as a working model for I Dream of Jeannie. In The Brass Bottle, Tony Randall's girlfriend was actually played by Barbara Eden. According to Barbara Eden, network executives and censors were really unconcerned about her navel being able to be seen during shooting. This was until season 3, when someone casually mentioned that it was occasionally visible when the waistband of her costume shifted. After that, her navel was required to be covered all the time. But that wasn't the end of the censorship. There were other rules that they had to follow too. The chiffon bottom of her costume had to have an extra layer added so that her legs couldn't be seen through it. Also, if Tony and Jeannie were ever in the bedroom alone, the scene had to show one or both of them leaving the room. Jeannie wasn't allowed to just blink out. They had to show her smoke leaving. Jeannie's bottle was never allowed in Tony's room. These additional rules were to make sure that nothing improper between the two characters was ever implied, even on a subtle basis. The same day that the pilot was sold, Barbara Eden found out that she was pregnant. After battling infertility for 7 years, she had every intention of quitting the show to have her baby. She insisted on seeing Sheldon Leonard that day so that she could let him know that she was quitting and that he needed to find another actress. But Sheldon was so convinced that no one else would be as perfect as Jeannie, and he insisted that they would make this work. Larry Hagman stated that there was a point during the show that he just wanted to quit, that he was tired of the repetitive scripts. Sidney Sheldon advised him that he couldn't quit because at the time, if he quit a successful show, he would get the reputation of being difficult to work with, and he would never work again as an actor. With this being said, he decided just to demand more money. He asked for $5,000 more per episode. At first, he was turned down because they thought that it would set a precedent for other actors to ask for more money too. But he kept on insisting and finally was able to get more money, which helped him feel better about putting up with the scripts. He also insisted on bringing in new writers to help inject new blood into the series, and that happened as well. The famous theme music that we all love so much was not used during season 1. That season was not syndicated with the rest of the series, so few people had ever seen it before it was released on DVD. The Nelson home still stands on the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, California, where it has a new role as the ranch operations office. Aside from a few minor cosmetic changes, the house remains almost exactly the same after 50 years. Larry Hagman, before he died, admitted that he was drunk most of the time while he was filming the show. He would reportedly down champagne as though it was cherry Kool-Aid. Throughout the series, in many of his close-ups, you can see his eyes are bloodshot, glazed, and glassy. This wasn't noticeable originally with the TV screens of the 1960s, but with digital technology today, it makes it obvious that he didn't look very well in these scenes. The decision to have Tony and Jeannie get married in season 5 was made by the network, hoping the change would improve the ratings. Barbara Eden completely disagreed with the idea of having them get married, and so did the whole cast. Nobody liked it. The idea that a marriage between a genie and a human was possible, she just didn't buy. And with Jeannie becoming a typical housewife instead of a genie, the opportunities for comedy just weren't there anymore. Also, the relational tension that drove the show was now gone. Barbara Eden plays Jeannie and her evil sister, Jeannie 2, in 8 episodes. She said that when filming those episodes, they would film her as Jeannie against a double one day and as Jeannie 2 against a double the next day. The costume and hair and makeup for each character was so different, and it took so much time to do that it was impossible to have enough time to film both of these characters on the same day. Now, the fights between the two shows of I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched are legendary. Bewitched had serious competition pop up when I Dream of Jeannie started airing on NBC. It was NBC's response to the hugely popular spellbinding series, and it starred its own beautiful actress, Barbara Eden. Not only were both leading actresses drop-dead gorgeous, both women had a fairly similar look. Bewitched was the second most popular show on television at the time. It had no direct competition. But I Dream of Jeannie producer Sidney Sheldon wanted in on some of this fantasy action, and he quickly created and produced I Dream of Jeannie. The other thing that made it worse for Bewitched is Barbara's on-screen outfit had a lot more sex appeal than Samantha's did. Samantha didn't have a particularly magical outfit, at least not one that she would constantly wear. But Jeannie's revealing outfit was a big hit with the audiences. Barbara had a drop-dead gorgeous physique, and this certainly pulled in on the ratings. When Jeannie started airing, the similarities were painfully obvious. Both women were of the occult. Both women had fallen in love with mortal men. And you didn't even have to get past the intro of I Dream of Jeannie to draw comparisons. Take a look at the opening credits of both shows side by side. Bewitched opted for an animated intro of Samantha and Dick York that showed the couple living their lives alongside Samantha's witchcraft. I Dream of Jeannie did the exact same thing. Barbara Eden states that she never really had a problem with Elizabeth Montgomery, that they were cordial every time they met. But behind the scenes, there was a real problem. And you have to believe that it spread to these two gorgeous actresses, too. You know it did. Elizabeth Montgomery was furious that they were stealing her thunder, despite the fact that Elizabeth Montgomery hated the thought of being copied by I Dream of Jeannie. Since the early 90s, these two shows have ended up becoming sister sitcoms in syndication, meaning that the shows are usually played together in syndication, one right after the other. The reason for this is that both shows are now the property of Sony Pictures. I Dream of Jeannie was a classic. It's always fun to go back and watch it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.